Perfect. So your hormones, and your environment. We're about to have a conversation in general. Hormones, I don't think perimenopause, menopause is talked about a lot, but also in the context of your environment and how you can kind of gain a little bit more control and more understanding of how all of it kind of plays together. So I'm a physician assistant. I founded Ananda Integrative Medicine back in 2018. Before that, I did urgent care and family medicine. Wow, I graduated in 2000. It's going to be 20 years. So I've been through the gamut of all. I used to work at Kaiser, so I know traditionally what we were taught, what we can do, what we were not supposed to do, what we don't know a lot about. All of that has changed. The one thing I do want to mention is in 2004, an important study came out from the World Health Organization, the WHO, and the studies were done on estrogen and the effects of women, specifically cancer. There were so many indications that estrogen was causing cancer, and so we've got everybody off of hormones. And now I've come full circle. We know that's not true, and I'm going to go into some detail about why that is. And now I get to actually use natural, safe, bioidentical hormones to treat women, and it's been a game changer. So why are we talking about hormones and what we're going to talk about? We're going to talk about hormones, obviously. We're going to talk about environmental toxins that can influence the hormones in your own body. We're going to talk about what some of these examples are, how they affect your body, how they get into your body, how we can measure them, and how you can reduce them. Lifestyle, diet, genetics. I talk about all of that with my patients. I think it's so important, and it has to be personalized. I have to meet my patients where they're at. What is their lifestyle like? How many changes can they make? That's a little bit about what happens, but also toxic overload and how it's found in your home and how to find it in your home. So there's a lot of studies that have come out specifically that show that environmental exposures, or what we call toxins and endocrine disruptors, and how they influence hormone function. Most of the research has come out, I think, probably in the past 10 to 15 years, which I think is amazing. But it takes 17 years from something to be found in research articles to actually be practicing in modern medicine. But I think in the area of integrative medicine, we get to take that information and start applying it quickly. We don't have to wait 17 years, which makes it really cool. Some terms that I want to kind of mention when I talk about environmental toxins, they can be synonymous to chemicals. And these chemicals are known to disrupt your entire hormone system, which is known as the endocrine system, and hormone balance. I'm going to show you how they're all kind of interactive and connected. So there's specifically a study, the PMID that I show here at the bottom is referencing the study. This one study talked about, 30 different chemicals in the environment and how they infect or effect the entire endocrine system. And we'll get a little bit into more detail about that. So hormones, what are they? They're chemical messengers. They play a role in growth and development, metabolism, reproduction, mood. They affect everything in our body. It can affect your adrenals, it can affect your thyroid, your pituitary, but we're going to specifically talk more so about the sex hormones in our body. It also affects insulin. A lot of studies are coming out about insulin resistance, and to me that's important for my patients who have PCOS, and there's links to endometriosis. It's all connected. So what are some of the symptoms of hormone imbalance? Jessica mentioned some of the acne. You can have allergies, anxiety, joint pain, breast tenderness, constipation, palpitations. We know about the low libido, hot flashes, brain fog. A lot of these things, I think, even early on in my career, when patients would come in, we were taught just to treat the symptom. We would start them on SSRIs. We would give them medication for their high cholesterol instead of paying attention to, maybe these hormones have something to do with this. I bring up hyperlipidemia and cholesterol because studies have shown that the increase in estrogen when it peaks and then the fall has been linked to preventing some of these diseases. There's more and more studies coming out to show prevention. We don't know about the treatment part yet, but this is why I'm so passionate about getting patients starting on hormones earlier the better. Even in the phases of perimenopause, you don't have to wait till you're postmenopausal or a whole year after you haven't had your period to start on hormones. So environmental toxins are equivalent to endocrine disruptors, and endocrine disruptors disrupt your hormone balance. This is the take-home message for today. And we're going to talk about how that happens. The reason this is so important is because these toxins, they look like and they can mimic your own body's hormones. So they attach to the actual receptor, and they block your own hormone from sitting and attaching and activating it the way that it's supposed to. Which is quite fascinating to me. I didn't learn this till about maybe 2014, 2015, and it blew my mind. This is a very good infographic, I thought. All the orange little icons here are your hormones like estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. The purple is the receptors. The receptors are kind of the gateway into your cells and your signaling system. Endocrine disruptors are here in green, so they can sit and lock into that receptor. Sometimes they create a different response. Sometimes they just block the hormone. There's different levels of what they can do, but that to me is super scary. I don't know if you've heard of this company called EWG. They're a nonprofit organization, and all they do is talk about disruptions in our body from our own environment. They have a list of dirty dozen endocrine disruptors that are probably the worst. And they talk about them so much because they're directly linked with breast cancer. BPA, dioxin, atrazine, phthalates, perchlorate. I don't know if this is the first time you're hearing about some of these. I talk about them all the time. I'm going to show you where you can find them in your own home. You'll probably be surprised how often you are probably exposed to these and don't even know it. And this is important to me because I was taught that, estrogen can link to breast cancer. But more important to me is each one of these endocrine disruptors actually contribute more to breast cancer and any estrogen sensitive cancers like uterine cancer. So BPA is found in plastics, on thermal paper and receipts, and the lining of canned food. That's why we tell patients not to microwave food in plastic bowls. We've switched to glass containers, not drinking in plastic water that's been sitting in the sun. It helps to leach that BPA and then you're ingesting it. Flame retardants, they're found in our clothing and our furniture. Super important to buy organic clothing. Our furniture off gases, mattresses have VOCs in them. There are chemicals called PFAs and PFOSs. The substance basically is Teflon. It's the stuff that's in your non-stick cookware. It's in your floss. It's in the water that we drink. It's prevalent everywhere. If you've heard of the company called DuPont, they're the ones that introduced Teflon. At the turn of the century, it helped us with convenience. We didn't realize how much toxins it was producing. There is a movie called Dark Waters that came out, I think, right before the pandemic. And they talk about DuPont and Teflon and how much of these toxins have been poured into our environment. They've gotten into our water, our soil, and they are forever chemicals. It takes a really long time for them to biodegrade. And these actually don't. That's why they're called forever chemicals. Pesticides like glyphosate, it's a company called Monsanto. They make Roundup. It's everywhere in our food if it's not organic. So I'm a big proponent of eating organic food. Dioxin is found in tampons. In school, I was taught toxic shock syndrome. It's when women wear tampons for too long. But what I think it is, I haven't been able to find any studies on it, is that, when you don't use tampons that are organic, they're laced with dioxin, probably pesticides, and you're mixing it with your vaginal mucosa. It's super sensitive, easy able to absorb all these chemicals. Then it's mixed in with the blood, and it's a perfect nidus for infection. Just a theory of mine, but again, mind-blowing to me. Phthalates, paraben, triclosan, these are found in personal care products, in makeup, your hand sanitizer, your antibacterial soaps, wipes, cleaners, shampoo, conditioner. So EWG, that company I talked about, is an amazing website that actually gives an entire database, and I'll show you a glimpse of it a little bit later, but it'll tell you what products are clean or cleaner and cleanest and what aren't. And then another thing I want you to look out for in ingredients is fragrance. Fragrance is a catch-all phrase that's a loophole in marketing. What it allows companies to do is they can throw stuff in there that's trademarked, so they don't have to put it out to everyone. But as long as it's less than, I think, 10% of the actual makeup of any product, it can be any product in there and they don't have to disclose what's in it. So be careful of anything that has fragrance. So effects of endocrine disruptors, it can mediate your immune function, modulate it. So that's why some people get more allergies, they become more prone to getting sick. We could see more thyroid disorders, actual bone disorders, neurological developments in children. The most important we're going to talk about is hormone-related cancers and reproductive health, also metabolic disorders. So BPA is known to increase the risk of breast and uterine cancer because it is known as a xenoestrogen. It looks like and mimics our own body's estrogen. So for me, I test all my patients' BPA levels, and if you're in the red zone, I work really diligently to help decrease that toxic load before I start you on hormones, because I don't want to increase your risk of uterine and breast cancer. Phthalates are known to increase the risk of endometriosis. Lead disrupts the entire HPA axis, which is the hypothalamus, the pituitary, and the adrenals, which are also linked to miscarriages. Atrazine is a pesticide, and it's also linked to breast cancer tumors. How toxins enter our body. It's in the air that we breathe. It's in our drinking water, so that gets into the soil from the irrigation ducts. It's in the food that we eat because we don't practice regenerative farming techniques anymore. So we don't let the soil till, and we replant seeds and crops in soil that's nutrient deplete. There was a study that came out that showed the food that we eat today is about 30% less nutrient dense than what our grandparents ate. So a lot of patients come to me and they eat organic and they try to eat nutrient dense food, and we do mineral nutrient testing, and we find out that they are low in some of these important and essential vitamins and nutrients. And in the skin, just by using personal care products. So air fresheners, scented candles, your laundry detergent, fabric softeners, everything. We can go literally room by room in your house and we can find probably chemicals that you're exposed to every day. I love this image because it's just, it's so awful, but everything, mattresses, the paint, air fresheners, candles, detergents. And I'm not telling you this to scare you into thinking you can't do anything. I just want to help you find cleaner alternatives so that you can decrease the toxic load on your body. There was an interesting study came out. I think the initial one came out in the 1970s when we were going to first send astronauts into space. They were concerned with the air the astronauts were going to breathe, and they found that the indoor air quality sometimes is worse than the outdoor because of off-gassing and just all these components. And so they found that if they planted or took plants with them, they could probably take out some of these toxins. Now, that's not going to work in space, but in your home, that can help. So yeah, you can get air filters, but also just having lots of plants in your home environment can help too. Your water has, unfortunately, so many things in it. These are just a list of it. If you go on that EWG website, again, that I love, you can actually punch in your zip code and it'll tell you, based on your zip code, what toxins are probably in your water. Kind of scary, but there are solutions. You can get reverse osmosis water. There are home delivery that actually deliver in glass bottles with water that comes from either wells or the spring, and they've third-party tested for these things. Now, if you look at some of these, they originally come from pharmaceutical drugs, and how they get into your water supplies, people flushing them down the toilet, or they just get into our environment from you peeing. Your body naturally detoxes, and then you pee this stuff into the environment, and it gets into our water supply. It also gets into our food because of soil contamination, pesticides, fertilizers, industrial activities like big companies that DuPont, that their byproduct can create a lot of toxic chemicals, and they just get dumped into our environment, whether it's by liquid into our river supply or into the air, vehicle emissions. So another study showed, on average, before a woman walks out the front door, she's applied to or been exposed to 168 chemicals before she has left the door, between the shampoo, concealer, body lotion, perfume, deodorant, lipstick, mascara. Isn't that amazing? What also is crazy to me is the EU has banned most of these products, but here in the States, we haven't. I think California in 2021, we voted to start this process and to ban most of them, but I don't think that's going to take effect until 2030. So most companies are moving toward it. There's more awareness about it, which is amazing, but we're constantly exposed to all of these chemicals every day. This is another infographic, which I love. It kind of breaks down to every single different toxin based on category, and then the amount in, just look at this, lipstick, 33 different chemicals, perfume. And I haven't stopped using these products. I've just found alternatives that are cleaner, and it's never going to be 100%. You know, you pick and choose your battles. There's some things you can't live without, and that's okay. It's not going to kill you. But whatever things you can change, you change. So another company called Made Safe has made a big campaign on bringing education to women and families about the different kind of contaminants that can be found in your day-to-day products. So this is, again, just another example. Body wash, even sunscreens. I know, crazy. So how can we reduce exposures? We talked about with water, there's reverse osmosis, with getting rid of BPA through plastic use, using glass, stainless steel, ceramic, using cleaner personal care products, washing your fruits and vegetables to reduce pesticides. I also read that two things. There was a study that came out in 2019 that tested all California organic wines and beers, and they all tested positive for glyphosate, and I couldn't understand why. So I talked to my medical director, a few other people, and what they think is going on is these organic farms are still using irrigation water that is controlled by our government, and they are dripping glyphosate into the irrigation ducts because it decreases weeds, and then they don't have to pay people to go pull them, and they don't clog up the irrigation ducts. So even eating organic, this is crazy to me, you're still exposed to these pesticides because of the water supply. And if you think about it too, if there's an organic farm that's practicing organic techniques, and then there's another farm maybe a few miles up that isn't, and they're spraying these toxins, you have drift from just the wind and environment, and that can be dropped into the soil, and then we ingest it. And also, if you think about it, I think farmers market's probably the best way to get organic. It comes straight from the farm. You know where it came from. It wasn't on the road too long. But I think in grocery stores, and I don't know this for sure, is sometimes they have to preserve the organic fruits and vegetables, and they spray it with certain items. So I've now started to wash my own even organic fruits and vegetables, and I get from the supermarket, because you just don't know. It sucks, but it's just our environment that we live in now. So ventilating your home is important. I said indoor air pollution sometimes is worse than outdoor. So opening up all the windows every day to kind of let fresh air in, having as many plants in the house as possible, getting air filters if you need it, and then using alternatives to your conventional personal care products that don't have all these toxins in them. It's kind of a catch-22. I've been curating my own list, but sometimes it's hard, right? You want things to be really clean, and some of the alternatives don't get things really clean. So you have to sometimes use more of it. You don't get that fresh smell you get from that Downy, but you can use essential oils, and there's other things. It's just kind of changing the way we think about some of this stuff. I did an Instagram post a while ago about the study that was done back from the US, and the astronomers and astronauts, and what plants can actually purify your home. These are the most beneficial. The peace lily, I have a bunch of snake plants in my own home, and spider plants, mainly because they're the low maintenance ones. You don't have to water them as much, and they're really good indoor plants. So how do we test for them? It's done through your urine. These are two of the most common tests that I use. The environmental toxins is your urine test, and it tests for 39 most common environmental toxins, including BPA, this is one of the few that actually test for it, and glyphosate, which to me are super important. And the PFAAs just came out, I think, within the last year, because they're more difficult to test for than the forever chemicals, but these two are super important to me. So this is how you can test for them. I do have an account where you can order your test, and you can look that up later. I wanted to talk a little bit about EWG's Skin Deep database. You can literally punch in anything you use, and it'll rate it on a scale of 1 to 10. And EWG verified being the best, and 1 and 2 being in the green, which I still think are okay. I want you to slowly switch all the stuff that you have that is anything less than that. You don't have to throw everything out right away. Whatever you have, finish, but start prepping for whatever the next thing you're going to buy. Type in shampoo and it'll rate it for you. Here are the ones that are EWG verified. And also Amazon does it for you. If you use Amazon Prime, you can type in EWG verified shampoo, and it'll give you all of the ones that are EWG verified. Right here, if you just type it in, it'll bring it up. Honest Company is a really good company. They have really clean products. You'll learn what those are. Made safe, and avoiding toxic chemicals. So I want to kind of jump back a little bit to the importance of estrogen, progesterone. I think are super beneficial and protective when it comes to breast and uterine cancer. This book is amazing. It's called Sex, Lies, and Menopause. It is written by T.S. Wiley in conjunction with Julie Taguchi. I work with Julie Taguchi. She is a mentor of mine through the Women's Health Hormone Network. She is a specialist in breast cancer. She's an MD, and she is a big proponent of patients, even if they've had breast cancer or family history of breast cancer, obviously not active cancer, being put on actual hormones. This is how important this stuff is. Again, I'm going to repeat, the increase and rise in estrogen reaching a peak and then dropping opens up progesterone receptors. The receptors for progesterone allow it to come to a peak and then fall. The two together turn on the P53 gene, which is protective against breast and uterine cancer, or any estrogen-sensitive cancer. In 2004 and 2003, the studies that came out that said estrogen was linked to breast cancer were hormones that were produced by equine, which is horse estrogen, is what we were giving these patients, and unopposed without progesterone, and they were the oral form of it. So the study was done on oral estrogen, unopposed with no progesterone, which showed a link to increase of breast cancer. And I agree with that. I will never, ever prescribe estrogen without progesterone. And also, I don't use it orally, and I don't give it a static dose every day. We follow your natural biorhythm hormone, which gives you a peak in estrogen and then a drop, a peak in progesterone, and then the drop. And we use creams that are bioidentical to your own body. I was talking to Jessica about the Oprah special that came out in April, and she had the whole panel of women include Drew Barrymore and Maria Shriver, and 2 physicians who practice hormone replacement therapy. And I was so happy to hear that Oprah uses the same click method. It sounds like it's the same method that I use. So I don't think she can endorse it or say what it is. But yes, I use the click of estrogen and progesterone. It's so important. But what I was so happy to hear her say also is that she had a physician on there that mentioned the physician also has 2 sisters who had breast cancer, and they also are on hormone replacement. They talked about how important it is. We don't talk enough about it. And so I wanted to take the opportunity to maybe open this up for questions